Hey, welcome to episode 2 of Cayman Wild. We're going to try to find some green sea turtles today. We struck out in our last episode. Hopefully we'll have better luck today. As you can see behind me, the ocean is a little bit rougher. I don't typically like to shoot in these rough conditions, but having done so in the past, I have learned that sometimes the rough conditions can create some interesting atmospheric images with the green sea turtles and other subjects. We have a sun-cloud mix today, so that's going to provide us with some other nice opportunities. So let's get out there into the ocean and see what we can find. Let's go. As you can see, the waves are churning up a lot of the seagrass on the ocean floor, and that is going to affect the clarity of the water because it's also going to stir up the sand on the bottom as well. First up, we have the star of our first episode passing by, the large female southern stingray. And here's our first turtle of the day. Let's see if we can get up above her for a shot looking down towards the ocean floor. When I do shoot this downward looking perspective, I prefer the images where the flippers are out at the side for a much nicer profile shot. And when I use my Olympus OM1, I use it at the frame rate of 20 frames per second. So this does allow me to capture the flipper in the perfect position that I'm after. As you can see here in the image specifications, I use my McLachlan 8mm fisheye lens, and when pointing this lens downward, you get a nice curvature to the horizon, and in this case we see a nice curvature in the ocean floor with the downward pointing lens. And since the turtle is swimming through the water column rather than resting on the ocean floor eating the grasses, it is moving a little quicker, so I increased the ISO to 800 and went with f8 at 1/800th of a second to help freeze the motion of the turtle swimming through the water column. The other gear used was my AOI UH OM1 housing and the AOI DPL 01 4-inch glass dome. As I continue to follow this turtle through the water column, I'm hoping she's going to head to the surface to grab a breath of air. That always makes for a nice shot. Capturing these types of images will also allow you to create some diversity within your own collection of each individual species you photograph. And in these situations, I'll often try to capture that over-under picture of the turtle rising its head out of the water for that breath of air by just holding the shutter down on the camera and thrusting the camera up out of the water and just shooting blindly and seeing what I can capture. Sometimes I'm lucky, sometimes I'm not. You'll notice here that the image specifications are the same as they were for the previous frame. The only thing you don't notice is there's no distortion to the ocean floor, even though I still used the McLachlan 8mm fisheye lens. And that's because the camera is pretty well being held square with the world. It's not tipped upwards or downwards to cause any curvature on the horizon. So we get that relatively straight horizon line by holding that lens square with the world. Here we have another female green sea turtle foraging on the ocean floor, and we can see that the turbidity in the ocean is causing a lot of poor clarity now. One of the things I really enjoy about using the 8mm fisheye lens in the small 4-inch glass dome by AOI is it allows me to get in very close to the subject, and the closer I get when the clarity in the water is not that good, I will be able to improve the clarity of the photo because I'm minimizing the distance between the lens and the subject, therefore minimizing the amount of water between the lens and the subject, which will help improve the clarity. By selecting a low perspective here, one where we're looking a little bit upwards towards the turtle, we are able to take in a bit of that disturbance in the ocean as the waves are stirring up the ocean floor and creating that backscatter in the image. It helps create a little bit of an atmospheric look. Here we have two female green sea turtles foraging on the ocean floor. It's always nice if we can capture two or more in the same field of view. And for these ones, I'm going to just snorkel along the surface waiting till I get them lined up for the right shot that I'm looking for. And here's the image that I kept from that last short burst at 20 frames per second. Even though I set my camera to 20 frames a second, I'm not holding that shutter down for a full 1 second for 20 frames. A lot of times it's short little 5 and 6 image bursts to get the picture that I'm hoping to capture. And as you can see here, the turtle that's in more of the distance is in a bit of overcast, shaded type conditions. And that's because we have the partly cloudy sky. And as well, the wave action was creating some shadow-like situations on the ocean floor as well. And the foreground turtle is actually right in a nice shaft of light. And as you can see with that fisheye lens pointing downward, we do have a nice curvature to the ocean floor. Now, with the darker conditions, because the sun was going in and out of the clouds and the heavy waves causing some shadows, I did go with a slightly slower shutter speed of 1/640th of a second. And in post-processing, I also added a bit of a vignette using the Tony Kuiper's TK9 action panels. And that vignette, I think, just helps add a little bit of a spotlight effect on the turtles. Here's another turtle foraging on the ocean floor for some seagrasses, and as always, there's usually a barjack swimming around with them looking for a free meal. What I'm going to try to do for this one is again get down for a low perspective where we're looking slightly upwards towards the turtle. And this turned out to be my favorite frame of the day. I love the low angle perspective, and because the sun was not shining quite as brightly, a lot of that backscatter or stirred up ocean in the background wasn't lit up by the sun, so it's not quite as visible. To capture this perspective, I got the camera right down low on the ocean floor, and that dome is only about maybe a couple of inches from the nose of the turtle, which is the beauty of the fisheye lens because you can get in really close but still take in large subjects such as the turtles and fill the frame with them and really having an impactful image. And you can see here from the image specifications, I'm still at ISO 800. That helps me keep the shutter speed fast enough for the turtles' movements. And because it's a rough day on the ocean, the waves are moving me around a bit as well. And the faster shutter speed will just help combat any involuntary motion created by the waves. Here's another turtle on its way up to the surface to grab some air. So I'm going to follow her. And after she grabs her breath of air, I'm going to position myself over top of her to get another downward looking perspective as she's swimming through the water column. And I'll look for those flippers in the outward position as well. Once those flippers are moving towards that outward position, that's when I'll click the shutter and I'll hold it down for 5-6 frames. And then that will give me the flippers in the exact position I want and create that nice stereotypical profile of a turtle. One of the things I really like about the OM1 camera body is it has an underwater white balance setting. And I find that is quite accurate in getting the colors as natural as possible. And in post-production, when I'm in Adobe Camera Raw, I use camera-specific linear profiles, and I use the ones available from Tony Kuiper. I find these give a little more leeway with adjusting sliders and getting things just the way I want them when I'm processing out an image. So what I'm going to do now with this turtle, I'm going to try and work my way around to the front because she's hovering just a little bit off the bottom and try to get a low perspective image of her in the water column. Here's the result of my efforts. I got down nice and low with the camera. I've got some separation between the ocean floor and the turtle so we can clearly see that she's up in the water column. And with the fisheye lens held pretty much level on both the vertical and horizontal axis, we have a nice straight horizon line with the ocean floor. In an upcoming episode, I'm going to do a bit of a tabletop discussion showing all the AOI equipment that I use underwater, the various dome ports, the macro ports, the strobes, and just how the housing is really effective in allowing you to control all the features of the OM1 while you're underwater. And that's what you really want, is a housing that is easy to use and allows you to access all the controls beneath the waves the same way you would topside. Well, that's a wrap for episode 2 of Cayman Wild. Please keep in mind the green sea turtle is now classified as an endangered species, and we must do everything we can do to protect them. When we photograph them, we cannot cause them distress. It is unethical to chase them, touch them, or approach them in such a manner that they would beat a hasty retreat from us.